Hey guys, how's it going? My name's KJ Games. I'm KJ. I'm here today with my brother Bo.
Hey guys.
And today we're going to talk about the best Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes starting team. So this team is showcased in Rebels. If you haven't seen that show, that's perfectly okay. We're going to go through all their abilities today, how they work, what they lead up to. So Bo, take it away on where you get them.
So part of the reason we farm the Phoenix team so early on is because they're super easy to get at the very beginning of the game. There are other teams we'll talk about a little later that are going to carry you into the mid game, but there's just not another team that you have access to so early. So the first place you can find two of these characters is in the Cantina section. So we have Hera, who's actually the leader of the Phoenix squad. She's on node 1F of the Cantina. And then Ezra, who's one of the Jedi in the Phoenix squad, on node 2B. And then the other three main characters of the squad we're going to be using are in the various shops. So you can find Zeb in the Galactic War store, Kanan is in the Squad Arena store, and Chopper is in the Cantina store. And then there's also a sixth Phoenix member named Sabine. We're not actually going to use her as a part of the team, but we want to start farming her so that we have her ship when those come available. But you only really need to get her to about 5 stars, where all the others you want to take to 7 stars. So this is a really nice, easily accessible team early in the game, and it gives you somewhere to use basically all of your energy and currencies. And then the other ones we'll have a video on later to explain where you want to use those currencies. But for now, you can pretty much just hold on to them.
All right, so next we're going to talk about how they work and why this team is so good in the beginning of the game. So Hera, the leader that you'll be wanting to get, her leader ability gives the uniques of all the individual Phoenix members to everybody. And this is very important because they all work together really well. So Ezra gives offense with his unique. Kanan gives a counter chance to everybody, which becomes really important for Ezra and Zeb later. And he also gives a heal to the entire team when they get debuffed. Chopper gives health and protection recovery, and Zeb gives bonus protection and even more protection recovery. Sabine gives critical damage and chance, but like we said earlier, she's probably the least important and one you can ignore throughout all this. You only need to unlock her to about 5 stars, like he said, just for the ships.
So I'm going to dive a little deeper into each character's individual abilities, as it'll give you a better idea of how to use them, and it'll be important so that you know how to use them well for the events that we're going to use them for later. So we'll start with Chopper because he's pretty simple. He's a little tanky droid. So his third ability is a Dispel, so it'll remove buffs from the enemy team. And when you do this, it'll grant him protection, and it'll have a turn meter reduction mechanic on the opponents, which is pretty nice. And then other than that, he can taunt with another ability, and the neat thing about his taunt is that it grants him bonus evasion.
The next tank for this Phoenix team is Kanan, and he can taunt with his second ability, but it also has a little bit of an added bonus to it, to where he can cleanse debuffs from any of his other teammates. His third ability is a Dispel for himself, so he can get rid of debuffs, and he also gives protection up to himself and another teammate.
Next, we'll talk about Hera, who, again, her main function in the team is to kind of bind the whole team together by sharing their uniques, but she also has some neat little things she can do. So on her basic attack, it has a mechanic where if you target the weakest target, it will apply an expose debuff, which will make them take additional damage on a later attack. This also has an interesting interaction with Zeb that we'll talk about a little later. Her second ability allows her to call a teammate to assist. You'll typically want to call either Ezra or Zeb. Zeb, we'll talk about his reasoning later, but with Ezra, he's your main damage dealer of the team, and you want to get him attacking as much as possible. And her last ability, that's probably the most useful of her kit, is actually a Revive. So what it does is it applies this buff to a teammate, and then if at any point while they have that buff they're killed, they'll be revived. So this is pretty neat because it allows you to save team members that are about to die, and given Chopper and Kanan both have taunts, you can typically hide behind one of those taunts and then just throw this up on them, and even if they die, they'll be brought back to life.
Next we have Ezra. This is probably my favorite character from the entire team, not only because of the show, but also because he has the most use in-game wise. This is the one that you want to make sure is the highest geared as he outputs the most damage for the team, and I'll explain how that works. So his basic attack has a chance to attack again. This gets very high chance once you upgrade his ability a couple times. His second ability is also the coolest looking one. He flies through the air Jedi style. And if that enemy has buffs, he dispels them. If the enemy doesn't have buffs, it reduces the cooldown on this ability so you can use it faster. And it also does a lot of damage, so you want to keep using this as much as you can. And then his third ability is like an assist, and it gives buffs based on which teammate you call to assist. So for Hera, for example, since she's a support character, he grants turn meter for both of them. If you call Kanan or Zeb, they get protection. And if you call Chopper, he's also a support, so that would give you more bonus turn meter. If you do happen to use Sabine here, he grants like higher offense for both him and Sabine in that attack. So Sabine can be useful if you're trying to kill a team really fast. But once again, we don't recommend using Sabine.
So the last character we're going to talk about today is Zeb. And while he's not particularly my favorite character, he does allow you to do some interesting things with this team. So the first thing we'll talk about is his basic. So when he basic attacks an opponent, he'll apply a daze. But then what's interesting about his kit is that if he attacks an opponent with a daze, expose, or stagger, he will stun them instead. So this is really useful because Hera will apply an expose to the weakest member of the enemy team, and then Zeb himself has an ability to apply a stagger. So this is what we were talking about. You can use those assists from Hera and Ezra to get Zeb to attack and apply a daze, and then on Zeb's turn, he can attack again and stun the opponent. And that's pretty much what you'll be using him for, is to apply dazes around and then use those dazes to stun dangerous opponents. His second ability, like I said, applies a stagger, and what this means is that if another teammate attacks a staggered opponent, they'll lose all of their turn meter. So Zeb doesn't hit particularly hard, although he can if he's geared up significantly, but you likely won't see him at that point. But his main utility is that he allows for turn meter manipulation and gives you an ability to stun the opposing team. His third ability is not particularly interesting. It just applies protection up to both Zeb and his teammate. The only kind of interesting thing here is that if the teammate has a debuff, they will receive a 100% counter chance. But given the team already has a pretty high counter chance thanks to Kanan's unique ability, it's not particularly useful.
So now that you have the full team assembled, this will be your main squad arena team until basically level 85. This team lasts a very long time, helps you get through Galactic War because of its health regeneration and protection regeneration, and just how well it works all together. And also, you will run into many other Phoenix teams because this is a very common pathway for a new player. So when facing other Phoenix teams in Squad Arena, it is essential that you target Hera first. You have the advantage of being able to pick your attack targets and abilities, unlike the AI. So it's essential that you target Hera first and try to eliminate her as soon as possible. Once she's down, all the Phoenix members lose their uniques from the other members, so it should be easy going after that.
So now we'll talk about how long you want to keep this team around. As we mentioned, they are a pretty good Squad Arena team for a while, but they'll start to fall off as you kind of get to what we would consider the mid-game of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So we would advise getting all the characters to Gear 8. You can probably get away with Gear 7 on a couple of them, but there is a pretty substantial increase in bonus protection when you go from Gear 7 to Gear 8. So Gear 8's always nice, and it doesn't increase your galactic power too much, so it's not too much to worry about. If you're going to gear anybody a little higher than that, we would recommend Ezra, and actually we probably recommend taking him to a little higher gear level. We both have him at Gear 10, and it makes the events that you need these guys for significantly easier. So, once you get them to around these gear levels, what you're going to want to do is try to start using them to unlock legendary characters. The easiest to unlock is Emperor Palpatine, and he's good because he's pretty much the best leader for an Empire team early in the game. And then you also want to unlock Grand Admiral Thrawn. His event will be a little trickier, but if you get to the gear levels we've talked about here, you should have no problem with Palpatine, and then we have a guide that we'll be releasing to tell you how to get Grand Admiral Thrawn, as this one will be a little trickier, but with a little bit of practice and hard work, you can pull it off.
Last thing we want to mention about the Phoenix team, we didn't really dive into mods for this episode, but we will be making a video later on what mods are, why they're important, and what to put on a Phoenix team and other teams. But that's for much later. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, hit that bell, and join us for the next one.